Like everyone it seems, I've been spending a lot of my free time getting reabsorbed into the world of Tamriel in the Oblivion remaster. I'm so caught up in returning to Cyrodiil that I even tried to do some recording to convince myself this was work for the video. But also, like the original Oblivion, it glitched out on me.
I don't like to think about zombies. Missing arms, legs, heads.
Yeah, me too, buddy. But that got me thinking. Oblivion is largely the game that introduced me to the Elder Scrolls, when my friends would talk about it during lunch and I'd watch them play, and eventually I would even play myself. And yes, I did play an edgy Dunmere thief archer. I mean, this was the 2000s. Anakin burning like crispy bacon was still pretty much on my mind. Which brings me to the purpose of the video, Pathfinder. While I was always aware of the existence of D&D, I wasn't really aware of how it played outside of the few snippets I saw on the D&D themed episodes, which their accuracy, as you know, varies. And I was even less aware that there were even other games of this style. And so, like how Oblivion introduced me to the world of the Elder Scrolls, Pathfinder 1st Edition introduced me to the world of RPGs. Oddly enough, it was in a Zelda-themed Pathfinder game, which, considering I have an entire Zelda-themed D&D campaign on the channel, is the definition of irony. And then came the announcement of Pathfinder 2nd Edition, and I was initially excited because, well, even at that point, the fatigue of a long-running edition was really starting to set in. And I did the playtest, and was originally not overly thrilled. It felt like too much of a drastic change from the game that I really enjoyed. However, after being years removed from it, doing a lot deeper dive, and also running a game that's been going for about a year and a half now in the system, I can safely say that I really enjoy a lot of things about Pathfinder 2nd Edition, especially the remaster. It's not the same game as Pathfinder 1st Edition, but it's also not trying to be, and that's a very important distinction. It is very much its own game. All that to say, Pathfinder 2nd Edition isn't a game that I can say is my all-time favorite, but it definitely does make the list. It is a game that I deeply respect, and I think is a masterclass in game design and mechanics and how basically each element informs another aspect of the game, not to mention can inform the story of your character. So, with that long preamble out of the way, here are 3 things that I really like about Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Number 1, the action system. One of the biggest complaints I've seen for games like D&D is that combat can be rather boring and stale, and there are ways to really spice it up. Paizo actually came up with a very elegant solution. It keeps combat insanely simple, but because there's a lot of ebb and flow and changing up how each turn can go, it does make combat feel a little bit more interesting and dynamic. And a lot of that comes down to the 3 action system. Paizo basically decided to keep things absolutely baseline simple. You have 3 actions to do whatever you want. That is stupidly easy. If you want to move 3 times, you absolutely can. If you want to attack 3 times with increased penalties each time, you absolutely can as well. You can also cast a spell 3 times, or, do whatever. There really is no limitation. As long as it stacks up to 3, you are totally fine. I absolutely love this method within combat because, as mentioned, it creates a very ebb and flow, very dynamic, where each turn is not typically going to be the same. Not to mention, you can use those 3 actions to really tell the narrative of the character. Perhaps they're a cocky mage and they decide to burn all their spell slots in one turn because that's what they would do. You can use that in the action economy, so the narrative is being told in combat as well through these methods. It's just a very simple method to understand, and not only that, can create for dynamic fights, ones that you can tell stories about your character, and from the get-go at level 1, your character feels awesome and heroic. There's just really no downsides to it. So much so that I was actually really happy to see that DC 20 was going to be adopting a variant of this method by increasing up to 4 actions instead of 3. Number 2, tier success. I briefly mentioned this when I talked about failing skill checks in one of my previous videos, but this is something that I really enjoy about Pathfinder. If you want your character to be really knowledgeable in a specific area or to be one of the stealthiest rogues, you can build your character for that. And because of how the tier system works, you're most likely going to be rewarded. To critically succeed, you need to roll 10 or higher than a target DC number. So if you rolled a 25 and the DC was 15, you critically succeed. even if you didn't roll a natural 20. For a critical failure, you need to roll 10 or lower. So for the DC 15, you need to roll a 5 or lower. So again, the mechanics are helping tell the story of the character. Highly customizable. Now, technically, this can be said about almost any RPG in existence, that the game is highly customizable. You can make any character that you want. And that is certainly true with a lot of them. You can make basically any character you want in any RPG. But a lot of that is also very much dependent on the DM and what they're going to be allowing at the table. All that is very much dependent on the DM saying yes or no, making tweaks, house rules, you name it. But Pathfinder, because it's so rules heavy, because there's almost a rule for absolutely anything, if you have a character concept, odds on favor is, it's in the rules. You could probably find a way to make a elven, ranger, dragon character work in Pathfinder with zero problem. And the nice part is, since everything's within the rules, if you have a character concept that works at one table, there's a good chance it could work at another table. There's just something about the fact that everything is within the rules just makes the game feel more customizable, and that you can really dive in and really dig into the story of the character and then to find the story of the character within the mechanics. I don't know, just something that always felt really fun and interesting about the game. Now, all of these come with one massive caveat that has kind of been hinted at for the whole video. Pathfinder is a very rules-heavy and crunchy game, and that element can be intimidating for a lot of people, be it because they have a hard time remembering a lot of rules, they have a reading disability, or they just don't really have a lot of time to learn a new game with this extensive rule set in their busy adult life schedule. And it's especially not helped because Paizo really likes to over-explain things sometimes. Some things that can be explained in 2 sentences, they can go on for paragraphs at a time, it feels like. Though the attempt here is to be as clear as possible within the rules and help guide the DM and players to understand where things are going, as well as with the intention within the rules, it is a counterpoint to the overall game and can potentially impact people's experience with it. And truthfully, this is probably my biggest problem with Pathfinder, that it can be overly complicated at times. As much as I love it, this is probably something that I've had a little issue with for an extended period of time. Which is why I'm really excited about games like DC 20, where it seems to be addressing the issues I have with 5e, where that feels to be overly streamlined at times, and Pathfinder, where it feels to be overly complicated. For some reason, DC 20 just feels to be nicely in the middle of that area. However, regardless, I love all these games and what they bring to the hobby. And the fact that this just proves there is in fact a game for everybody out there. If you don't like Pathfinder, well, then odds on favor is you'll enjoy 5e. If you don't enjoy 5e, then you're probably going for Pathfinder or maybe something else entirely. Who knows? There's always something out there for you, and that's what makes this hobby great. You don't like one game? There's another one waiting there for you. And that'll do it for this video, folks. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all next time.